These are the men and women of Beaver Valley, the bravest of the brave. They fought fearlessly for their country, their city, their community, and for the ideals we share as Americans. They served proudly in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf War, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Here now are their stories, their own experiences in their own words, the words of the heroes of Beaver Valley. 86-year-old Beaver Falls native David Saras was deeply impacted by the attack on Pearl Harbor that occurred when he was only 10 years old.
I saw what happened to those good men on those battleships.
Upon graduating from Beaver Falls High School in 1949, Saras had a decision to make, whether to enlist or be drafted.
Well, talking to all my buddies, they were saying, check with a recruiter in the Navy and see what they can do for you. At that time, we were at peace in our country. And the recruiter said, look, if you'll sign on with us and get through basic training, boot camp, we'll send you to school of your choice.
Saras ended up enlisting in the Navy in 1949 and was sent to Great Lakes, Illinois for boot camp. After 4 months of training, he decided to become a damage control man.
That's a jack of all trades. They expected you to do everything. Carpentry, welding, you name it, we had to do it.
Ultimately, Saras ended up serving on Kodiak Island in the Alaskan Territory for 2.5 years.
They asked me, what would you like to do coming out of school? Would you like to serve on an aircraft carrier? Or would you like to go on a special assignment to Alaska? And I was very venturesome. I said, gee, that sounds neat. I'll volunteer to go to Alaska, because it was a territory, it wasn't a state at that time. And I'm kind of thankful that I did. They flew us around in what they call a PBY. It's a flying boat, really, with the engines up on the wings and 2 bubbles on the sides. Well, I sat in one of the bubbles on the side of the airplane, and they flew us to different islands to do what we had to do. If a ship pulled in and there was any damage, we had to do the repair. If we didn't have what they needed, we had a Marine detachment there, and over across on Kodiak, they had an Army base. We would call something called midnight stores, where we would go and borrow what we needed from them. They didn't like it, but we borrowed it anyhow. And that's how we maintained everything. The ships would bring in some landing craft and what have you from Korea. Well, they were tore up. I don't know if you know this, but the landing craft, the LCVPs and the LCMs are made of plywood, 3/4-inch marine plywood. The only metal to protect the troops they took in was the ramp in front that would lower once they got in. On those landing craft, if they got holes in them, our jobs were to repair them, put patches on them so that they could take them back out again. And they had what they called gravel plates over the screw on the landing craft that would get tore up, and we would have to replace those quite often. When I came back from Kodiak, Alaska to Seattle, Washington, I got to meet some of the Army personnel. They were the lucky ones that came back on the troop ships. From Kodiak to Seattle, Washington, I came back on a troop ship. Some of the guys, the Army men, were tore up pretty bad. Our job was to do what we could do to help. That was our pay for our trip back to Seattle.
After his time on Kodiak Island, he was reassigned to San Diego. Overall, he served 4 years before returning back to civilian life.
I personally don't look for recognition. I don't feel I deserve that, not being a combat veteran. Those guys that met the enemies up close and personal, they still have some bad memories from that. But they're the kind of men and women that you never hear from.